1. So I, 18 and male, live in northwestern France in Normandy, and it's not a place with endless forests, it's flat and boring. Since I was a kid, I would stay for 2 weeks during the spring holidays at my grandparents' house in the Jura region in eastern France. The Jura region is a hilly place with lots of forests and amazing wildlife, so it's the opposite of where I'm from. During my time here, I usually go deep into the woods to pick mushrooms and berries, and I never saw something weird. The animals you always see there are deer, foxes, badgers, wild boars, squirrels, rabbits, and very recently, wolves have been back in this area of France. If I remember correctly, it was the 2nd of May 2022, and as I said, I was in the forest near the village of Giron to pick berries. I was alone, there was no one around, but it was not something strange, because it's a very sparsely populated part of France. The thing that felt strange was the fact that I did not see any animals, no deer, no wild boars, no foxes. It was silent. Not gonna lie, I was starting to get scared because the silence was making me uncomfortable, but I decided to keep picking berries because my mom wanted to make some pies, and I love her pies. I was walking in the woods and I could see the clearing. And I was thinking about taking a break in this place because I've been walking for almost an hour. It was until I saw that very big and dark mass that was bipedal, and it was standing in the clearing. I stopped walking, and I was staring at that thing behind the trees for like 20 seconds before running back to the village. It was very tall and hairy, probably 210 centimeters or 7 feet for Americans. It looked like a bipedal wolf or like a half dog, half human. I don't know if that thing saw me, but I did not put a foot in this forest since then. When I was back at my grandparents' house, I gave my mom the berries I picked, and I stayed in my room for the rest of the day. I did a lot of research about the wildlife in the Jura region to see if I saw some kind of rare animal, but no, what I saw was not an animal. While doing the research, I stumbled across a story from the 16th century. It's the story of a werewolf that was killing children in the village of Amange in the Jura. Even though Amange is pretty far from Giron, it's still in the Jura area, so there is possibly a connection. I freaked out with this discovery, but I wanted to know more about werewolf stories in this part of France. So I watched a 2-hour-long video about 2 women who were talking about what they saw in the Jura. When I looked at the drawing that one of the women in the video had done, my heart stopped, because it looked exactly like what I saw. I know that werewolves are part of the Jura folklore. There is even a celebration that takes place the last weekend of June to celebrate the story of the werewolf of Amange. Since this experience, I haven't been able to sleep well at my grandparents' house, because I felt like I was being watched. The view from my window is nothing but a big forest, so it's not reassuring. I'm back in Normandy since May 9th, but I'm thinking about it every day. And now I want to go back. I didn't tell anyone about this sighting yet because I don't want to sound crazy, and I don't have any pictures to prove that I'm not lying. What do you guys think? Am I crazy? 2. Hello, my name is E. Tonight I experienced something that doesn't make sense. I'm very fond of walking in the woods at night. I always feel calm and peaceful when I do this. I've done this for years at multiple different trails without anxiety or paranoia. This particular place, I've had a few peculiar experiences. Years ago, when I first started coming, I met something I call the off people. I have never experienced vivid hallucinations outside of this place. These things look like generic people in colorful modern clothing. and always approach me from in front of the path, walking within arm's reach. They stare for an uncomfortable amount of time, and when they walk past, are gone. It is very difficult to maintain a gaze on them, and I always have a feeling I need to divert my eyes. Something feels fundamentally off about them, but I've never felt afraid, just kind of dumbfounded and uneasy. Initially, I just convinced myself it was Wooks being Wooks, and I'd really need a nap. But in the third time it happened, I began to understand something is happening here, and I cannot understand, and maybe I should be wary of it. So after 3 years of Rancocas State Park being my spot, I got spooked off the land. Jump 3 months later, I decided to come back after having unshakable thoughts that I belonged in that place. I wish I didn't. I came later than usual, around 2 in the morning, started at my usual trailhead, and began to routinely walk, emphasizing control of my breathing in an attempt to let go of my internal monologue and ground myself completely. No weird feeling, no feeling of being watched, no feeling of being unwanted. No weird feeling, no feeling of being watched, no feeling of being unwanted. After rounding a bend a half-mile in, I saw a deer looking away from me. I thought it was a beautiful, peaceful moment, so I stood and stared. Then something I don't understand happened. It then looked at me, and it had the face of a human child. Immediately, I could not move from some mystic force, but from the shock of seeing something that is still impossible to rationalize. It moved towards me slowly, almost cautiously, until it was no more than 10 feet away. It didn't move like a deer, it seemed almost like a bead-filled plushie, bending in places without joints moving in a way that wasn't possible for the body of a deer. It maintained eye contact the entire time, as it bent up at the waist, human-like, standing straight up. Not one sound, not a growl, not a chirp, just staring at me. I backed away, sprinted to my car. It didn't follow, nor did it move at all as I ran. This whole interaction was no more than a half a minute. I've been telling myself the area has to have a gas leak making me hallucinate, because it's easier than accepting that I saw something not canonically fitting to the known natural world. I don't think I'll be walking in the woods for a while. When I try to assign meaning to this, I just don't have the words. 3. Every summer I go on holiday and stay with my aunt at her house. She has 2 guard dogs that stay in her garden. When we got there, she told us the dogs had been barking a lot recently, and much more than they usually do. I said to my aunt, "They usually always bark, isn't that normal?" She said it was happening at night, every night, and they were very aggressive, which is unusual for them. She concluded that it was monkeys teasing the dogs since she had seen them do so, but that was always in the daytime, so at night that would be odd. I share a room with my brother, and we sleep on the 2nd floor. The ground floor is the garage, basement, and the dog's walled area. My brother said I snored too loud, so I decided to sleep in the living room. The first few nights were fine, and I slept well, but one night I decided to stay up and watch some YouTube when I heard the dogs pacing around and whining outside in their area. I looked out the window to their area and couldn't see anything. I turned around and headed back to the couch, and I saw a tall black shadow pass on the windows behind the couch, on the opposite side of the house to the window to the dogs' area. I heard thumping, stomping outside like something heavy was walking around the outside of the house on the path. Like there is a wall around the house and the path you can walk around the property. I heard the slap of its feet against the smooth stone floor of the path around the house. Whatever this was tall enough to make a slender shadow as it walked past the window. I was quite scared. I went to a window near the front of the house to see if I could see it moving around and saw something tall, skinny and humanoid, tearing off leaves or something from a tree. I thought it might be a monkey, but it was tall, over 10 feet and standing straight. So tall, it was at the height of this tree and the second floor window I was at. So I took some pictures to see if I could zoom in and take a better look. The image wasn't clear, but I could see the thing had turned its glowing eyes to me when I took the pic. I looked at the second pic and saw the thing's face right in the window. It had a flattish nose, massive black eye sockets. Looked like it literally had no eyes. Its mouth was wide open, it was blurry, but looked like it was skinless. I told myself it had to be a monkey, but there was no way something could stomp when it walked, be tall enough to look right through the second floor window that was like at least 10 feet or 11 feet off the ground, when it is clearly touching the ground with its feet. I was so scared I left the window and went back into the room my brother and I shared. The dogs were barking now. Maybe this thing was coming from the back of the house and left at the front, which is why the dogs barked. I figured the dogs knew and sensed when whatever this was arrived, and they knew it leaves by going over the walls at the front of the house. The next morning, my aunt went out to water her plants and saw the tree had branches missing off the tree again, and some destroyed branches. I showed my aunt the pictures, and she was shocked, since her neighbor was complaining about someone who had been walking through her yard and destroying anything plant-based. But my aunt shrugged it off as a monkey. But I saw how tall and slender that thing was, and it was no monkey. She went to the neighbors and asked if they had experienced anything or seen this creature last night. The neighbor said she had stopped looking out for who or whatever it was, because she was getting creeped out too much. She had called the police numerous times, and they could not find evidence of a trespasser, set up a camera that went missing, but scariest of all, she was convinced recently whatever it was wasn't human. She ran outside to catch the person red-handed, but she only found that in the park, whatever it was, took one stride over the 7-feet wall and disappeared in the darkness. She said it was probably a trespasser's desperate attempt to flee her property, and her mind was playing tricks. She tried to think nothing of it. I never saw it ever again. Maybe I fell asleep before it came. My aunt's dogs sadly passed away, but she still tells us she experiences some weird things at night, like loud noises in the garden and around the house, scraping on the windows, snapping twigs. It seemed to have become more loud and confident since the dogs died. It's been, like I listed above, making more noise like snapping twigs audibly scraping on the windows. It has started to happen to others in the neighborhood, who all started calling it the skinny mun. A man suggested it was teleporting from yard to yard. This is in the Caribbean. It's not uncommon to hear true stories of ghosts, witches, etc. Too many people are doing witchcraft here. These stories are coming up a lot on TikTok of people witnessing others turning into or from creatures in the Caribbean. I believe someone's been messing with something beyond our understanding. I don't want to go back there, but don't let this scare you out of going, guys. The Caribbean is a beautiful place. Four. I truly feel like I'm going insane. This has been occurring for months now, and what began as slight anxiety is now intense paranoia. Every time I hear my cat outside my window crying, not meowing, crying. Cat owners will understand what I mean. The first night, I walked outside without hesitation and called my cat. When that didn't work, I worried his legs or paws may be hurt, which would explain the crying, so I went and searched for him with my phone flashlight. That detail is important, because as you probably know, phone flashlights are not very bright. So when I saw something moving in the bushes, it was impossible to tell if it was my cat or not. What I do know is that when I gave up and chalked his behavior up to being a brat, because let's be real, what cat comes when they're called, and it's no stretch for him to whine for no reason. I walked back inside my house to find my cat curled up and sleeping on my couch. There's no way he somehow got past me walking through the door without my knowledge. But still, I brushed it off because I suppose anything is possible. The next night it happened was about a week later, and by then, I had forgotten about the first weird experience. Only when I looked to the foot of my bed and remembered my cat had been with me the entire time, it all came rushing back. I'm the girl who makes fun of horror movie characters for being stupid, so when I sauntered outside in morbid curiosity, let me honestly tell you, I have never retrospectively hated myself more. I went to my window, and the crying was so clear it had to be coming from within a few feet. But I didn't see a thing, which was strange because I definitely saw something the first night. It was around this time that the creepiness of it all hit me, and I all but ran back inside. I swore then that my cat lost his nighttime privileges and would be indoors by sundown, and I wouldn't investigate this anymore, naively thinking it would go away. It has just gotten worse. That was months ago, and the crying occurs almost nightly now. Barring a couple of nights of feline rebellion, I have been vigilant about keeping him indoors at night, so I know for a fact that whatever I'm hearing is not my cat. It just sounds so realistic. Before you comment saying it was another cat, don't bother. I know what my cat sounds like. I'm a proud cat mom, and I can tell him apart from the neighborhood strays. I'm familiar with being cautious of baby cries outside your door at night, because predators have been known to record them and bait women, essentially weaponizing their maternal instinct. But who does that with a cat? For that to work, not only would they have to know I have a cat, but also somehow gain access to a recording of his crying and play it back for me every night right outside my window. Hello, nightmare. Has anyone experienced something similar? How did you make it stop? Is this thing's goal to rob me of sleep and peace of mind, or am I in danger? Or is it finally time for me to suck up my pride and see somebody, because I'm officially insane? 5. This is a very real story. This really did happen. My mom, father, and 2 brothers and I lived in an old farmhouse in Wisconsin back in the 80s. I'm the youngest and only girl. Years later, my mother and father divorced and I ended up with more siblings. But that's a different story. The house was very old. It had 2 stories and had a creepy basement. The first floor was where the kitchen, living room, dining room, half-bath, laundry room, and my parents' bedroom was. I should also mention, we had a very small white dog, no cats at all. The second story of the house had 5 bedrooms and full bath upstairs. My bedroom at the time was the closest to the top of the stairs. My parents' bedroom was off to the right of the stairs. My mother was a very devout Catholic person. We went to church every Sunday and confession every Wednesday. I hated it. However, when my mom would tuck my brothers and I in bed at night, she would bless our rooms at night with the sign of the cross, saying, "In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, I bless this room." This was a very important thing for her to do for my brothers and I. We believed in her blessing. We believed it protected us from evil. It kept the bad things out of our rooms. We believed in it so much that we were afraid if we went through the doorway of our rooms in the middle of the night, we would break her blessing, and then we would be doomed. So we stayed in our rooms till the first rays of sunlight. I was not the perfect little girl, I was a troublemaker. Being that I was the youngest, and boys could not hit girls, I would start fights with my second oldest brother, and then cry saying he started it, because bratty little sisters do that. Well, one night as I was sleeping, something woke me up. It was dark in my room. The bedroom door was wide open. Couldn't shut the door. That would also break the blessing. My bed sat against the wall lengthwise next to the window, and my doorway was straight across the room from my bed. When the light was on, I had a clear view of the banister for the stairs out in the hallway, but on this night it was pitch black. I should not have been able to see a thing. I did not have a nightlight then. But like I said, something woke me up in that night. I thought something said my name. When I sat up in bed, I wasn't afraid. I was more confused about why I was awake more than anything else. No one was there, so I thought. Then I saw it outside my bedroom door in the hallway. It was a black shadow barely taller than me. I could see it because it was darker than the dark, if that makes any sense. And I heard my name again. Pixie, come here, it said. Come out here. So I got out of bed, and I walked close to my door, making sure I didn't cross over the threshold of the doorway. And I got on my hands and knees as I got as close as I could. Again, making sure not to cross the door. It was a very black cat-looking thing. It was smiling, telling me to come out of my room. Its teeth were sharp and pointed, and only slightly lighter than it. Its eyes were glowing black. I know it doesn't make sense, but it had eyes and they were looking at me like it wanted to eat me. It had a tail, and that tail came to a point like an arrowhead. I just looked at it. It wanted me to leave my room. I reached up to the light switch on my wall and turned the light on. It was gone. Nothing there. I looked around as much as I could without crossing over the door, and I couldn't see if it was hiding in the rest of the shadows of the hallway. So I did the only other thing I could think of to make it not come back at all. I put my hand out in the hallway and felt up the wall of the hallway and turned on the hallway light. I left both the hallway light and the bedroom lights on. I had to leave the lights on. I broke the blessing and went back to bed. When I woke up, I told my mom about it. She dragged me to church, had the priest say a prayer over me, and made me drink a gallon of holy water. Well, maybe not a gallon, I'm sure, but it seemed like it was quite a bit. She said I had seen a demon. It was trying to steal my soul. Years later, I was watching a friend of mine playing Alice in Wonderland, The Madness, and I shit you not, that is the closest image I've ever seen to the thing that was outside my bedroom door. I was never afraid of that thing, but I was shocked to see it in a video game. The eyes and teeth are the right shape, but not the right color. I've never seen it again after that night. At least not in that shape. This really did happen to me. Thank you for reading this. Have a great time. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 280. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you could please look next to where it says subscribed, because I know you all are. I mean, why wouldn't you be? Then just where the little bell is, click that, and make sure it's set to all notifications, so that you get all notifications instead of some, because then you don't see all the videos. Then you're bored. You don't want to be bored, do you? Anyway, let's see. Okay, we have a little birthday shout-out to do before we go. Well, before we move on to the question of the day. And today's birthday shout-out goes to Griffin Icedancer. And they will be 59 on Tuesday. We're doing it a bit early, because I saw it pop up in the chat. So a very happy birthday to you, Griffin. Now, since your birthday isn't technically until Tuesday, then usually birthday celebrations would have to start on the Tuesday. But I'm feeling generous, so I will allow you to celebrate your birthday from today, that's a Friday, right through to the following Tuesday. But don't tell anyone I'll let you do that. So that's lots of cake and sodas and beer if you're into alcohol and stuff. Maybe a nice glass of wine, a nice soft blanc. And just whatever you're into, just make sure you're having good times. Possibly there'll be some fried foods. Personally, I'd get Chinese takeout, but that's just me. But that being said, we're going to now sing Happy Birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Griffin. Happy birthday to you. Okay, right. Now, Hellfreezer's question of the day. Okay, today's question is, and this is thanks to Jada, if you could only eat one kind of food, assuming that you didn't have to worry about health issues, but you could only have that kind of food for the rest of your life, it's what sustains you, it keeps you alive, you're still allowed to have drinks and things, so, but you can't have soup, because that counts as a food, although you can have smoothies and milkshakes. So if you could only have one kind of food for the rest of your life, what would it be? For me, it would be the Chinese takeout style king prawn curry, right? And that would be served on a bed of fried rice with a portion of chips, an extra portion of mushrooms, and prawn crackers. That would be my go-to meal for the rest of my days if I could only have one thing. Haven't had it in such a long time. So, what would yours be? Make me hungry by leaving a comment below. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.